Okay, good afternoon. We're trying this for the second time. Yesterday did not go well. Had some issues with internet connections. I've had technicians out today looking at everything. And so it does say that it's going now and that it should be broadcasting. So if you're listening and you can hear me, if you could give me a thumbs up or an okay sign or whatever to let me know that somebody's out there, that would be good because yesterday I started talking and apparently eventually it got going. I had about 1 minute of actual recorded or whatever part of this, and then it stopped and my internet connection went out. So it looks like I'm getting more people on the feed, so good to see everybody. My wife said that it's working, so as long as the boss says it's good, then I gotta go. It's got to be good. Haley, Peter, how are you guys doing today? So awesome. So what we're going to talk about today, and I'm going to say this again, if you guys are on the watching it live right now, if you could just say hello. I love the energy to keep that up and we keep things going. Today's topic is a little different, a little more technical, and it's going to be fun and interesting to see that how it goes today. But yeah, if you're out there and you're watching live now, just say hello. I'll say hello back. I appreciate that. And I know we've got more people than have said hello because I can see the numbers up on the screen for me. So if you're out there, please say hello. I'll say hello back because that's going to be some of the things we're going to talk about today is this. It's called NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming. And so we're going to get into that in just a second. Couple things I want to do on housekeeping. If you guys could do me a favor, I'm going to be on a podcast next Friday. I'll send the details out on my Facebook page. And so I will make sure everybody knows that. It's with a couple of good friends of mine, both investors from Canada, Lemore Markman and Elizabeth Kelly. And I'm not sure if Elizabeth is going to be on the podcast, but I know Lemore is. And Lemore was a student of mine back in 2012, I think. And so I've known Lemore a long time. Elizabeth, she was never one of my students. We ended up being kind of co-workers with the company at the time. We were both independent contractors, and she's an amazing real estate investor, teacher, trainer as well. And so I know her and Lemore do some stuff together. So I don't know if Elizabeth is going to be on there, but I definitely know Amanda, and I know you're from Phoenix, and you're not from Australia. I'll remember that next time. I totally apologize. I feel terrible that I said that the last time to you. But anyway, so I'm going to be on a podcast next Friday. I'm going to do a couple more Facebook Lives first part of the week. But next Friday, I'm going to do a podcast with Lemore and Elizabeth. And so that ought to be a lot of fun. I don't do a lot of podcasts. I don't know what the difference is, but I'll send the link. And if nothing else, if you want to get on the podcast, I'm sure Lemore and Elizabeth would love it if they had a few more people listening to their podcast than they normally do. So my goal with the podcast is to hopefully set a record for Lemore and Elizabeth on how many people are going to be listening to the podcast. So I will definitely send that link out to everybody. It'll be on my Facebook wall or page or somewhere, wherever my wife puts it there. She'll get it done, I know, and she'll take care of it. Masook, how are you doing today? Great to see you. And so what's happening, Masook was on yesterday. I think Peter was on yesterday, and I apologize that I had issues with my internet, but life happens. And Dan Shaker, you're going to appreciate this coming from Mr. No Technology guy here. So my wife got the newest, highest speed internet that she could get. And apparently the company said this is the best out there. And it's the main one that we have for our neighborhood that we live in. We kind of live out in a rural area. But so my wife calls yesterday or the day before, whatever, to try to figure out what's going on. The lady on the phone says the internet connection is fine. Everything getting to the house is perfect, but I'm going to send a technician out just to make sure everything's good inside the house. So he gets to the house and the speed is 900 something. I don't even know what that means. And so it says the speed is perfect. It's awesome. And he says, but the problem is our internet speeds are now too fast. The computers can't keep up with it. And I'm thinking, wow, that's kind of sad. You do everything you possibly can to get your speed on your internet up, and now the computers won't adjust to it. And I said to him, or my wife said to him, well, he's got a brand new MacBook, which I have a brand new MacBook. I bought it in August. Well, apparently not everything's syncing up. So Don't know. Don't really have any answer for that. I'm not going to get into it, but I got to laugh about it because it's frustrating. You would think the left hand should talk to the right hand, but apparently they don't. I'm just happy. I just hope that the Apple company can just keep selling more computers because I'm sure they need the sales. So it's all good. No sarcasm here. So anyway, today I want to talk about NLP. Neuro linguistic programming is what it's called. Now, what was funny was somebody had said they wanted me to talk about NLP. And I said, great. And they sent me this link on a website. And so what I did was looked at the link, and the link that they brought back to me was something called, and I've actually got it pulled up on my computer over here. It's called natural language processing. So now within the last few years, and I don't know how many years it's been, there's another NLP. So there's two completely different things with the same acronym of NLP, which I find to be kind of funny. And so with that, we're not going to talk about natural language processing because that has something to do with artificial intelligence and computer stuff, and I don't know anything about that. I think what it actually does, it allows, and this is actually kind of scary. I was actually talking to my mother-in-law who is on this Facebook Live today. We were talking about it last week, maybe first part of this week, whenever it was, and the technology is getting so good that they can take literally 30 seconds, not 30 minutes, 30 seconds of me talking like this, and then they have my mouth moving in certain ways. They have the words that I've used. And even if I've never used certain words, I mean, I could say something like this. I could say, Steve Hipple is the coolest guy I know. Now, nobody that knows Steve Hipple would ever think that I would ever even think about saying that. And so, unfortunately, though, if I just mouth any words close to that, Barry, Ontario, Wendy, great to have you. And so what's interesting is I can say, I don't have to say that. I could say, anything, the normal mode of talking, and this artificial intelligence with the natural language processing they can put the words together to make it sound like anything they want me to say. So if you think all the politics stuff is weird right now, it's going to get even weirder in the next 2, 3, 4 years with all the technology and all that stuff that's coming out. I don't want to talk about that because, first of all, I know nothing about it, but I do know a little bit. And I have to say a very little bit. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate that. I know a very little bit about neuro-linguistic programming. I got asked a lot of times, they said, Pip, did you study NLP? When I started speaking and I started doing trainings, I got asked by a lot of people, did you study NLP? I said, I don't even know what it is. Never really even heard of it. And they said, well, you do a lot of NLP. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I had to ask them what it was that I was doing that was NLP. And then I started to learn a little bit about it. Well, I think where the NLP thinking comes from goes back to when I used to do stand-up comedy years ago. And it's all about the phrasing, the framing, if you call it, and the words that you use. One of the most important parts about NLP is taking something and making it sound positive, even though it may not be a positive concept. And so, I mean, you could say, and I don't think I'll have a very good example of this, but I'll do the best I can. I could say, my daughter is very stubborn. And Grandma Linda will know who I'm talking about here. Actually, both of my daughters are on the stubborn side. They take after their mother, not their father, of course. And so I could say my daughter is very stubborn. And that may sound kind of negative, but you could take that and put it into a positive, because what does that mean? That means hopefully my daughters will have a good foundation of not just making rash decisions and actually thinking things through to a certain extent. So you can take this multiple different ways that you want to. And so the point I want to make on this is we can take and look at NLP in a very, very specific way. And what I want to take and look at NLP on is more verbiage and words. So we've been talking a lot about sales, and sales is a very large topic. And NLP is used in sales. NLP is used in motivation. It's used in communication. It can be used in relationships. It can be used with anything that you want. Probably the best way to use NLP is through negotiation strategies. And I go back to the real estate. You go back to, speaking with your family, your kids. It's a negotiation in everything that you do. And so what we talk about with neurolinguistic programming is saying things in a certain way, or maybe using a word in multiple different ways that has multiple different meanings. So I could say buy, the word buy. First of all, it's spelled three different ways. It's spelled three different ways. And if you're a person who English is not your first language, I'm going to use Masuk here from Korea. So Masuk, English isn't her first language. And I've had the blessing to meet Masuk years ago, and she has literally touched my life in a way. She's one of my favorite people in the world, and she knows that, but she would be embarrassed that I said that, so I'm going to say it anyway. And those of you guys that are on here know Masuk, you know exactly how great of a person she is. Well, Masuk, English is not her first language. And so I can't imagine learning a second language to begin with. But when you think about, let's just use, because I know most of us on here know English. And so if you look at the word buy, it sounds the same no matter how it's spelled. And it's got multiple different meanings. So BY, by the time I get done talking here, okay? Or BYE, bye Dan Shaker. That's the comment I want to make. So bye Dan. Or I could say BUY. I want to buy a phone. Whatever it is you want to do. So those words spelled three different ways and all have multiple different meanings. But the one thing, and I like to use somebody like Masuk, who doesn't have English as her first language, sarcasm is really hard to understand in a second language. And I know I very seldom use sarcasm, even though I just did it there. I love sarcasm. But if English is your second language and I say, I very seldom use sarcasm. And you guys all know that I do. Somebody who's just trying to put together the meaning of the words, I very seldom use sarcasm. When I say that, I'm being sarcastic, but somebody who's just trying to figure out what the meaning of all those words are together, that's very hard for them to understand. Now, I know some guys are going, how does this have anything to do with NLP? It has everything to do with NLP. Because we see things consciously. We see things subconsciously. We hear things consciously. We hear things subconsciously. So I'm going to go back to my word buy, okay? So anytime that I would stand up in front of a group of people, and I'm going to be doing a 3-day training coming up here in a few weeks. Actually, it's 3 weeks from right now, which is kind of cool. You're going to be all getting information about that. So the point I want to make on that, English is my second language, and I agree, sarcasm is really hard. Thank you, Carlos. I appreciate that. I can't speak any other languages. I can just, after talking to so many people that English is a second language, sarcasm is just a really hard one for them to understand. And Masuk and I have had this conversation a ton of times. Anyway, so the point I want to make is subconsciously, you can't decipher which buy I'm saying. Because subconsciously, you're not thinking about the meaning. You're just hearing things. It's subconscious, so you don't even know it's happening. So this is what NLP strives to work on. Now, NLP, and I'm going to look this up while I'm talking to you. There were two guys that started NLP. Binder, I think, was one of the names. And, well, I guess it doesn't even matter, and I can't even see what is over going on my other computer because I don't have my glasses on. But the point I want to make is it works at a subconscious level. Now, there are people out there that will tell you NLP is a bunch of malarkey. And I'm not saying that it is or it isn't, because I know it's more of a pseudoscience than it is a science. But I don't want to get into arguments on that because I'm not smart enough to argue that far through. The point of Bandler, I knew there was the guy I said Bandler. There's another guy with it. You guys can all Google it. It doesn't matter. And so they created this back in the 70s. And what they found out was a lot of people were already doing NLP, but they didn't know that they were doing NLP. They didn't even know it. And so it's one of those things when people started doing something, then they identified it and they gave it a name. So it actually came after the fact. Now, that might be the way it is with lots of different scientific things, but for this one, that's how it happened. People would use this type of language. People could motivate. People could negotiate. People could sell things, and they studied why do certain people get better results than other people, okay? And so I think one of the ways is when you sell something, you have to work on the conscious level and the subconscious level, because consciously, most people don't need a very expensive car. I know Peter on here loves nice cars. I know that for a fact. But I always make the joke when somebody says, you know, we talk about what kind of car you got or who likes cars, and all these guys raise their hands. I like this. I like a Lamborghini. I like this. I don't give a flying hoot what kind of car you got. They all got four wheels. They all got a steering wheel. They all got brakes. They all use, you know, a lot of similar technology. Yeah, I understand that some might be nicer and faster and all that other stuff. But the point I'm trying to make on this, you're still learning. Okay, Ms. Suk, that's awesome. The point I'm trying to make on all this, a good car salesman, when they're talking to somebody, what they can do is they can communicate on a subconscious level. Because consciously, you know that a Chevy is going to get you from point A to point B the same, probably most of the time the same time frame, because you got to obey speed limits, even if you can go fast with your car, as the Porsche, however you want to call it. And so the point I'm trying to make is when you're talking, when you're negotiating, there's certain words that you can use. And we're going to go back to buy. So if I'm sitting in front of you guys and I want you to buy something from me, whatever it is, a product, a service, a program, doesn't matter. In my conversation with you, I might, and so one of the things that I always do, and if you go back to one of the first Facebook Lives I did, I think this is like the 10th one. So I can't believe I've already done 10, and my plan is to continue to keep doing these. I enjoy it. And so the point I want to make on that is one of the things I always say when I stand up in front of a group of people, my first word out of my mouth is the word buy. So I always say, buy a show of hands. Buy a show of hands. Why do I say that? Because quite frankly, consciously, you're thinking this guy is just asking a question. But subconsciously, what's the first word you're hearing? Buy. I want you to buy something from me. So I say, buy a show of hands. Buy a show of hands. How many of you guys are here this afternoon? That right there, the conscious mind thinks what? The conscious mind thinks, oh, I'm here. I'll raise my hand. But subconsciously, what did you hear? You heard the word buy. If I want to take it to another level, maybe it's Friday afternoon, and I want you to buy something from me in the next 2 hours when I get done with the presentation. Now, we're not doing 2 hours today, but it is basically 1:15, 1:18 where I'm at right now. Everybody's on different time zones. I get that. But if I had a 1 hour presentation, and my presentation was going to get done at 2:15, we'll say. So I get up in front of you at 1 o'clock, and at 2:15 my presentation is done, and I'd like you to buy something from me in that presentation. Multiple times throughout the presentation, I would say, well, by 2:15, this is what's going to happen. By 2:15, this is what you're going to learn. By 2:15, this is what I want you to know. So what have I said there? I've used a conscious thing that you can't argue with. Oh, he's going to be done at 2:15. Oh, by 2:15, I know this is what's going to happen. And I may even take it another step further, but what I'm really doing is telling you what to do at 2:15. Buy something from me. That's what I'm doing. This is sales 101. And it's not tricky. It's not hypnosis. It's not doing something wrong. It's using the words in the English language that we have to the best of your ability. So I could say by 2:15, this is what's going to happen. By 2:30 at the latest, I want you to know this. So consciously, you're just thinking by 2:15, he's going to be done at 2:15. By 2:30 at the latest. So the latest we're going to get done is 2:30. But subconsciously, what are you hearing? By 2:30, by 2:30, by 2:15. So you're subconsciously thinking things in a totally different way. So we always want to understand what is the method, what is the end goal. The end goal for me is to sell you something. And if I want you to buy something, then I may use the word buy a lot more. I might even say, well, by the way, buy lunch. I could do a lot of different things. The word buy is an easy one. And I didn't want to get into, a lot of tricky ones that people, and I don't think any of them are tricky. It's just if you learn to use your English language in a specific way that can help you get to what you want somebody else to do for you, with you, alongside of you, whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be just in sales. It can be in anything that you want. I had a guy that I used to know, his name's Scott. If he ever watches this, he'll know exactly who I'm talking about. And so he did the same thing I did, meaning he sold real estate training for the same company, and there's multiple people that did it. And he would use some words that, in my opinion, just didn't make any sense. But I still remember him to this day, because what is my subconscious is hearing it differently than my conscious thought. And so he wants you, if you're the customer, to make a decision. So he would always say this, and it sounds weird when you hear it the first time, don't get me wrong. So when would now be a good time to make that decision? So when would now be a good time to change your life? So when would now? He said that most of the time. He would do it to the point where I'm like, just shut up, Scott. When would now be a good time to eat breakfast? That kind of thing. But this is exactly what he would do. I appreciate it, Corey. Thank you. And so the point I want to make is you can use this at so many levels. If you're doing a presentation in front of a group of people, they're not only seeing you they're not only hearing you consciously and hearing you subconsciously, they're also seeing you, but they're seeing you consciously. So they're seeing everything that you're doing. So I'm not a guy that likes to, I don't want to brag about anything. I hate people that just brag about stuff. I'm so humbled that anybody thinks that this is worth listening to. So the fact that I've got all the views that we've gotten on these, I am just blown away. So totally humbled and grateful and thankful and everything else. But the point I want to make on this, and I think it's very important, is you can do things in a very humble way. I mean, and I'm trying to think of a great example for you. And one of the examples that I would always hear people do, or one of the things I see people do, is if they want you to buy something expensive, they would put up an expensive car on the screen, something like that. And what that does is it subconsciously, it works in the same way, it subconsciously makes that person say, oh man, if I do what this guy's doing, or if I do what this guy tells me to do, I can have one of those cars. Well, I've never put a picture of a fancy car up on a screen in my life. Quite frankly, I don't have one, so it would be useless to the point anyway. So, but the point is, that's what a lot of people do. I've worked with lots of people who would wear $50,000 watches and just flaunt this $50,000 watch throughout their entire presentation. I always thought it to be sad, because I would never do that. I mean, just not in the realm of possibility in my world to even think about doing that. But you can do things. You can do things in a subconscious way that aren't in people's faces. So if you're trying to tell people that you've got a lot of cool stuff without telling them you got a lot of cool stuff, or showing pictures of cool stuff behind you, you can do it, but you have to be smart about it. So if I'm standing in front of you guys and I'm doing a presentation, and I might say, well, if you want a lot of money, what I want you to do is this. If you want to be able to drive a nicer car, what I want you to do is this. If I say, there are rich people in the world, and there are other people in the world. What have you noticed I've done every time I've said one of those words? I specifically pointed to me. If you want to go on nice vacations, here's what I think you can do to make that happen. So what do I do? When I do this, you don't hear anything because I didn't say anything. But what does your mind do? It sees something, and it subconsciously is starting to put words together. So what is NLP? called neuro-linguistic programming. And what you're doing is you're helping somebody with their subconscious mind with the way that you want to help program their thought process. This is why there are schools of thought out there that say this doesn't work at all. And I would love to tell you that I agree or disagree 1,000% with either side of it, because I don't. All I'm saying is you can do some stuff that, first of all, if it's done well, it will not hurt your sales. If it's done bad, it will hurt your sales. So you've got to be very careful, and you've got to not overdo it. NLP, I think, to a certain extent, it works, but I also don't know that it works in the way that a lot of people who really love it think it works. Because I think we're better human beings. We're smarter people than that. We can see through certain things. One of the things that people like to do with NLP, they say, well, if you like me, or no, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. If you're like me, here's what you should do. Well, what a lot of people say is the reason you do that is because you want them to say, hey, like me. And that's, I think, a little over the top, but that's what some people do. And so you can do a lot of different stuff. I know there was the company that I used to contract for. Years ago, they would name their training packages in different ways. So you'd either be a gold, this is the gold package, this is the diamond package, this is the platinum package. And so why do they use those names? Because those names do what? They put a certain connotation into your mind. Yeah, they never named it, this is the nickel package, or this is the paper bag package, because quite frankly, those don't mean anything. But as soon as you say this is the silver, the gold, the platinum, credit cards do the same thing. You want to get the platinum card, or maybe now you want the black card, or whatever it is. And so they do that on purpose. Well, I knew this guy I used to work with on occasion, different guy, not Scott, different guy. Won't even say his name. But we would have groups of students. And remember, those packages had names. Now, they never had those in the last 10 years that I did this. But this was old school. So you had gold, you had silver, gold, platinum. The platinum was the highest price package. And so this guy would see somebody walking through a hallway that he had in his class, and he'd say, there's a platinum student if I've ever seen one. That's a method of NLP. I think it's over the top. I think it's stupid, and I think it sounds weird, because nobody would ever say, oh, hey, there's a gold guy going down the road there. No, you wouldn't do that. So I think it's got to be natural. It can't be in somebody's face. I'll never forget, I had these couple of students, and they may watch this, so I'll shout out to them. They're from Vancouver, Canada, Randon and Jen. They'll know exactly who I'm talking about. Good friends of mine. Randon's a pilot is a pilot for Air Canada, but they also have a ton of rental properties. And in fact, I'll shout out to Jen. She is, and I'm not sure what her title is, but it's a huge real estate company. It's a real estate. It's called RAIN, and my Canadians will know who I'm talking about. Real Estate Investment Network, I believe that's what it's called. If Peter or any of my other Canadians know what I'm talking about, RAIN is what they call it, Real Estate Investment Network. And Jen does something with the Real Estate Investment Network. Not even sure what her title is. But point it, I had them come to my training, and they'd already come to my training. I met them back in like 2009. They purchased some training from me, became very successful students. They said, Pip, I want to learn how to present like you're presenting. I said, well, here's what I want you to do. Come to one of my trainings. I know you just sit in the back, and I want you to just take notes. And I didn't say anything ahead of time other than just take some notes. Now, remember, they'd already heard my presentation, and there wasn't a lot of new stuff in my presentation. Dan, don't even make a comment on that. Steve, don't make a comment on that. And so there wasn't a lot of new information in my presentation. It was nice. It was kind of like stand-up comedy. I didn't have to get new material. I just got a new audience each time. It's a lot easier to get a new audience than new material, guaranteed. Anyway, and so the thing that we have to think about with this is they didn't even know what to look for. And I said to them, here's what I want you to do. Randon, I want you to just take a little tally sheet. Thanks, Masook. I thought you would at least be nice to me. Take a little tally sheet, and every time I say the word buy, I don't care what the context is. just make a little tick mark every time I say the word bye. And this was from 9 o'clock in the morning till 11:30 at the first break. I said, Brandon, just every time I say the word bye, I don't care if it's by the way, I don't care if it's, by Tuesday, whatever. Every time I say the word bye, I want you to make a little check mark. Well, what's interesting is I was doing this before I knew I was doing it. Didn't even know I was doing it. Meaning, when I first started speaking, I was using this type of NLP that I didn't know. It was just my natural way of speaking. After I found out that it could be used in a way to help people in a negotiation situation, it could help people in the sales situation, and all the different things that it can be used for, I started learning more about it. So I said, Brandon, I just want you to make a couple of check marks every time I say the word bye, make a note of it. And in the first 2.5 hours, I had said bye over 100 times. It's a subconscious thing. People hear it even though they don't know they hear it. That's what subconscious means. You don't know that you're hearing it. However, it does work. And like I said, you can take this at so many different levels. Now, I have got already 30 minutes in. Wow, I can't believe how quickly these go. And somebody made a comment to me. They go, I love your Facebook Live videos, but they're so long I can't get through all of them. Okay, so maybe we need to break it down into shorter segments. So I made a goal today. I didn't tell you guys this out loud because I didn't want to not honor it. I was trying to go around 30 minutes, so I'm right at 30 minutes. Couple of housekeeping things. What I'm going to do is this. I haven't been doing any weekend Facebook Lives. And the problem I have with a lot of people, they go, well, I don't have time to do it this time. I have time to do it that time. So I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to do another Facebook Live. Hopefully internet will work. But tomorrow, and I'm going to shoot for probably, let's just do 1 o'clock again. I know that's still waking hours in the UK. I know it's early morning hours in New Zealand. My Australian people said, Pip, I can't do it at that time because it's 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning. I'm like, fine, you just watch the recording later on. And so what I want to do tomorrow, and this one I think is going to be a lot of fun, because I've been trying to tell you a lot of things you should say and what you should do. Tomorrow we're going to talk about some stuff you should never do if you're trying to negotiate, if you're trying to sell something, if you're on a witness stand at a court. Never been on a witness stand, but I see it all the time, and I'm like, wow. They need to be educated on what to say. Not to change their story, but just to not say the wrong things. I'm so amazed how many times I listen to other trainers, and I'm like, why would you say that? I'll give you an example. I'm supposed to be watching this guy, critiquing him as another trainer years ago. And he's teaching real estate strategies. And I kid you not, he's been teaching for 2 days. This is on day 3. I know somebody thought I was going to put the wrong number up when I said 2. So day 2, he'd already taught for 2 days. On the 3rd day, first thing he gets up to on Sunday morning, and what he's trying to do is teach new investors this. And here's what he says. I kid you not. First thing on Sunday morning, he gets up in front of everybody and he says, here's a deal you'll never be able to do. And I'm going, why would you show it then? Because what did my mind go first of all? My first thinking is, did he do something illegal? No, that wasn't it. What he was doing was telling them that he was so smart that only he could do this deal and nobody else would ever be able to do it. So the point would be, first of all, why show it? And secondly, oh my gosh, is your head that big that you think you're so smart that you can do this and nobody else can do it? Now, can he still show the deal and use it effectively? The answer is yeah. And so I'm going to come out tomorrow and talk about that, but then a lot of other things you should never say. Because many times when you're talking in a sales or a negotiation, if you just keep your mouth shut and don't try to over talk, or say dumb things. I know I always tell my students, turn to the person beside you, say, don't be stupid. Because sometimes we say stupid things, we don't even know we've done it. It's like Forrest Gump, I'm here. Stupid is and stupid does. So I have got 35 minutes, man. I could go for way long. I enjoy this. This is my favorite stuff to talk about. So what we're going to do is 1 o'clock Central Time tomorrow, so whatever time that is for you guys. please do me a favor. I'm going to put the podcast up, and I would like you to do this. This isn't for me. It's going to be for Lemore, because I'm going to tell her my goal, Lemore. I have no idea what's the most people you've ever had watch a podcast, but I want to make sure I break that record. That's what I want to do. And I'll get the right time, and I'll get the link to you. And I know some of the guys know who Lemore is. I know Masook knows Lemore. I know that Steve knows both Elizabeth and Lemore and all that. So they're great people. So I want to help promote them. This isn't always just for me. It's for everybody. I hope we're building each other up. So I want to promote them. And obviously, it'll be a lot of fun. And so we're definitely going to do that. I'm going to put that up. If you could share this video with anybody, I would greatly appreciate it. And I also, if you're new, and I know a lot of you guys have heard me say this, and maybe it sounds like a commercial, but I also know that repetition is the only way people learn. And repetition is the only way you hear things. So why did I say bye so many times before the first break? Because it's a repetition thing. You don't always hear it. Your mind's in other places. We're going to talk tomorrow about things you should never say. But what I would also like you guys to do, if you could just subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't know what that all means, but my daughter said, Dad, if you get this many subscribers, this is what we can do. I'm like, okay, then. Well, I'll tell everybody to subscribe. So tomorrow, Alfonso, great to see you, my friend. Guys, if you ever want to know anything about rent to own in Ontario, talk to Alfonso Salemi, one of my truly favorite students I've ever had. I know everybody's like, well, that's not a very nice thing to say. Well, Alfonso literally beat a good friend of mine up, and not in a bad way. I meant just talk to him. I believe when you signed up for the program, Alfonso, were you talking to Baz or Sam all day on Sunday? I don't think Alfonso even heard my Sunday presentation, because the entire day he was talking to, thanks, Peter, I appreciate it. He was talking to Sam or Baz out in the hallway. It was quite funny. And because he just had a lot of great questions, but he's become an awesome investor. I'll shout you out all day long, Alfonso, because I love it when the students become way better than their teacher, way better than their mentors. And Alfonso's that way, Lemore's that way, Steve Hippel's that way. Now, Dan Shaker's not that way. Masook is that way. A lot of people do an awesome job. So I think that's really cool. So 1 o'clock Central Time tomorrow. Share this with anybody you can, and we'll look for the podcast. I'm not even sure what it's called. Maybe if I pull it up here, I can at least see what it's. This is terrible. Well, I don't see the name on here, but Lemore's picture's on there. You'll see who I'm talking about. Sales strategies to build relationships is what it is. But she's got a nice little picture there. I'll put it up on my web or on my Facebook page. So, guys, like I say every time, let's keep this positive. Turn to somebody you know today, you don't know today, and just tell them they're going to be all right, because we're all going to be all right. So you guys have a great day. If I see you tomorrow, awesome. If not, have a great weekend. We'll be doing some more of these first part of next week as well. So talk to you guys soon. Tomorrow, 1 o'clock, we'll get ready to rock and roll things you should not ever say. Have a good one, guys.